So we're back with another interview with Yoshinori Kitase and Naoki Hamaguchi as they celebrate the PC release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and in this interview they talk about clearing up some confusion in regards to the minigame situation for 7 Remake Part 3, how some ideas from the compilation creep their way into the Remake trilogy, and what about that slap fight with Tifa and Scarlett? What's that going to be like in Part 3? So if any of that sounds cool to you, you guys know what to do by now. It's much appreciated. So this interview comes to us from Den Flaminico. However, we are going to be using translations provided by the Shinra Archaeology Department on Twitter. Again, they do some really great work, and I think they also have a YouTube channel now where they post some really great OG FF7 videos where they dive into the lore and some of the fan theories that have been circling around there. I believe it's called Last Elixir Productions. So I'll leave a link to them in the description below if you'd like to check that out. And we'll also be sourcing from Audrey on Twitter as well. And make sure to check out my latest video where we looked at the Xbox Developer Showcase, specifically focusing on the return of Ninja Gaiden with Ninja Gaiden 4, as well as Clair Obscur Expedition 33. If you could show those videos some love, I'd greatly appreciate it. So starting off first, what does Hamaguchi feel is the future of Final Fantasy after working on Rebirth? The SAD says, Hamaguchi feels like Rebirth has been able to present this new way of playing the game that can serve as branding for Final Fantasy going forward. And so he's really determined not to let all the skills and experience they've accumulated end here, but to carry them forward. Which is actually really nice to see Hamaguchi acknowledge that in an interview, because myself and so many other fans have mentioned in our content that we really feel like Rebirth in this remake trilogy should be a blueprint going forward for the Final Fantasy franchise. In terms of how characters are handled, story is handled, world exploration, especially that combat. Man, is the combat in this franchise so freaking good. And a lot of us would really love to see elements of this trilogy kind of continue forward into the future of Final Fantasy, be it a Final Fantasy 17 or 18 or a new spin-off. And while this doesn't confirm that they're going to just take the battle system of this trilogy and move it forward into a new game, it at least reassures us that yes, everything Hamaguchi and the team learned while making Remake and Rebirth and now Part 3, they're going to use that going forward to help them craft something that could be even better. So up next, how do some of those compilation homages make their way into this trilogy? Specifically the Parasol section with Cloud, which is a reference to Zack in Crisis Core. Hamaguchi says they wanted that to be a clear homage for Crisis Core FF7, but those sorts of niche touches come from the on-site staff, not the people directing it. The scenario writer in charge of the surrounding scenes was like, I want to get a Parasol in there no matter what. And everyone was like, well, I guess that sounds fun. It was the same case with Aerith's synergy attack, where she puts on the sunglasses. And again, that's just kind of the benefit of having a team of people where a lot of the members have grown up with this franchise and they've played every single aspect of Final Fantasy VII, including those compilations, and being able to know which sections to pick and pull from to put into the trilogy as little homages, I think is great. And they've really handled it super well. Seeing Cloud go to the beach and he goes to grab his sword and he realizes, oh crap, it's not there, so he's got to use the Parasol. Really awesome homage to Zack. The moment it happens, everyone's like, oh, that was in Crisis Core. It's that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where you see it happen, you're like, I recognize that. And speaking on the sunglasses bit, I actually think we did cover this in a previous video, however, I can't remember, but pretty sure one of the dev people involved was like, can I give Aerith sunglasses in this attack? So they tried it out and they're like, yeah, that works. We'll keep it. So it's really cool to see that while they have structure for this game and the combat and story and all these little touches, they do allow people to be like, hey, can we try out this thing? Whether it's an homage or something that's just going to end up being really cute, like the sunglasses. So there's a lot of seemingly wiggle room and freedom of expression for a lot of these really fun ideas from the devs. Up next, the devs talk a little bit more about how they handled Vincent in 7 Rebirth. Hamaguchi says that more so than altering his backstory or arc, it was more about fleshing things out to give a deeper sense of realism and make it all feel more convincing. Kitase says he doesn't get the impression anything has really changed from the original. They kept his backstory as an ex-Turk the way it always was, but just fleshed it out more. Hamaguchi says it's not so much a change of backstory as it is enhancing the reality of the situation. So maybe in response to that, maybe there were some people who felt like they changed Vincent's backstory a little too much or may have altered some things, but again, it's just kind of the way the trilogy works, where they have an opportunity now to really flesh out more characters, especially somebody like Vincent, who is really ingrained in the lore of Shinra and Sephiroth and the Turks. And naturally, right out of the gate, because it's a trilogy, you are afforded more time to spend with these characters and build them up. So in Rebirth, Vincenzo isn't just going to pop out of the coffin and then reveal his entire backstory to the characters. He doesn't know these people. These are strangers and they could be dangerous. So he just tells them, I'm security, I work for Shinra, go do what you need to do, but don't touch this specific area. And little by little in Rebirth, he does kind of give away a little bit about himself, saying, yeah, I knew Sephiroth, I had the chance to take him out, but I couldn't do it. And he also assists the party when they're looking for the Turks, because he used to work for them. He's like, I know what their radio frequencies are, I can help you guys. So it really just becomes more of a slower build up to get to know these characters and have them reveal who they are to the party. Again, I really love the way the characters are handled. It feels a little bit more realistic, because if you just met a group of people, you wouldn't just reveal everything about yourself to them right away. You got to earn their trust, and they have to earn yours. And I really can't wait to see them flesh that out even more in Part 3. So up next, we have everyone's favorite minigame, Queen's Blood. Do the devs have any intention of going back to Rebirth and updating that really awesome card game? Hamaguchi says they don't have any such plans to update Queen's Blood in Rebirth at the moment. Players often ask if they can release it as a smartphone app, but right now they're really trying to focus on producing the third part of the trilogy. So they're not thinking about creating a separate application for the Queen's Blood IP at present. However, they're extremely open to the idea of including Queen's Blood in Part 3. But if they do, they'd want it to be in a way that's distinct to Part 3, with its own adjustments and enhancements, and not just a rehash of how it was implemented in the previous game. They're actually really committed to expanding things like that. Funny enough, there actually is a website you can go to. I actually don't remember the full IP. It might be like playqueensblood.com or something like that, but someone has created a browser version of Queen's Blood where you can go. I believe you can actually play it online with other people, which is really awesome, and it just shows how much people connected with Queen's Blood. And although I felt like an idiot when I was first learning Queen's Blood, once I got it, I'm like, all right, what sucker's next? I'm gonna play you, I'm gonna just beat the crap out of you and take your card. It's super fun, super addicting, and incredibly deep. And the amount of freedom you actually get in that card game to customize your deck, to create like a very straightforward deck or like a destruction deck is really awesome. So they put a lot of effort into it. And maybe one day when the trilogy is all said and done, they can create a standalone Queen's Blood game or an app that will let you play against other people. But in regards to bringing it back for Part 3, obviously they're going to want to do it differently, which we will touch on a little bit more about how they want to clear up some confusion with the minigames and do them a little bit differently. Which is next. Hamaguchi says they have no plans at all to significantly cut down on the number of minigames in the third part of the trilogy. What he said before is that they're not going to implement them the same way they did in the second installment, that they're going to make some changes. But he thinks in translation, his words got misinterpreted a little, and instead people heard there will be fewer minigames in Part 3, which we did cover quite some time ago, an interview where Hamaguchi talked about the minigame situation, and I can't remember if in that interview that's how it was translated, where he said there'll be fewer minigames in Part 3, but I do recall him saying the way they implement them will be different. And I do recall him saying that they were going to revitalize how they handled the Platinum for Remake Part 3, because he took a step back and realized, the Platinum requirements for Rebirth were a little bit too insane, so we're going to pull back on that a little bit and make it a little easier. But they're not going to cut down on the minigames, they're just going to implement them differently, which is honestly the philosophy they've been following with this remake trilogy since the beginning. Is we don't want each game to feel like the same thing. We're going to iterate and add new things, whether it's going from linear Midgar to slightly more open with Rebirth, or making adjustments to combat and introducing the synergy skills and abilities, it'll be the same for minigames. Because you don't want to just take what you did in Rebirth and copy and paste it for Remake Part 3. You're going to want to change up how those are presented. And if we go a little bit further into this interview, he gives an example of, imagine you're playing a game and there's like some secret base you need to sneak your way into and overtake it. So you do that. And then you move to a different area and you have to do that again. And then you move to another area and you're just doing that over and over and over again. After a while, it's going to lose its luster and you're going to get really tired of it, right? That was essentially his explanation for why they had such a variety of minigames in Rebirth. They didn't just want the same minigame over and over and over again. They really wanted to prevent that boredom, even if it could potentially lead to people being like, there's too many minigames. So I appreciated the variety. Even if there was a minigame I didn't really like all that much, I did it at least once and then I moved on. And if there is one criticism I do have, it's how you acquired the chocobos. Sneaking up on a chocobo, wrangling the chocobo, and now it's yours was really fun and really cute at the beginning, but once you started to progress through the game, it got a little tiresome of like, okay, we're in a new region, I need a chocobo, but now I have to go sneak up on this one and acquire it. Now granted, how you acquired the chocobo was a little different each time. It started off very simple, where you just kind of had to hide in grass and then sneak up on the chocobo and grab it. In Junon, you had to hide behind these mine carts to sneak up on the chocobo, and then in Nibelheim, you had to work the chocobo around this weird plant that would grow and then shrink, so you had to time your greens throws to try and lead it through safely. So while there was still some variety there with how you got the chocobo, by the time I got to Nibelheim, it was like, look man, this is really cute, but I just want my chicken. I ordered it 20 minutes ago, deep fried, extra crispy, where's it at? So it's nice to know that that probably won't return in Part 3. I really do think they're going to go all in on chocobo breeding instead of having to find the chocobo and acquire it by sneaking up on it. You'll probably still have to find chocobos, but I think, again, based on what Hamaguchi is saying here, they're going to try and make sure it's different. Up next, they address staying true to the original format of FF7. For Remake Project's story, Hamaguchi says he and Kitase and also Nomura have consistently claimed that to a certain extent, it will conform to the flow of the original. And so locations you'd expect to appear in Part 3, along with the elements pertaining to them, will show up. Therefore, he hopes everyone will let their imaginations run wild as they await the game's release. And that's pretty much what we've been experiencing so far with 7 Remake and Rebirth, is those big story points are still there. Some locations have been switched around, some order of events for the story have been switched around, but for the most part, everything is still the same. There are some different touches here and there, some deviations within the story, and how they reimagine certain aspects from the original do change from time to time, but we're still going to have the stuff we would expect to see. The weapons are going to show up, there's going to be the live stream sequence with Cloud and Tifa, Northern Crater, all of that great stuff. So up next, do the devs have any plans to try and expand the FF7 franchise to reach more people? Hamaguchi says he can't give a detailed answer right now, but they're aiming to create more chances for players to experience the Final Fantasy VII franchise, as Kitase has also stated. This year and in those following, they're brainstorming ways to introduce Final Fantasy VII to a new fan base. You can expect some more developments on that front, so please look forward to it. And they've kind of done that a little bit already. They had a crossover with Apex Legends, but other ways would be like a collaboration with Fortnite. You know, maybe Cloud and Tifa or Cloud and Sephiroth make their way into Fortnite. Now that I think about it, Vincent and Barrett would make more sense because they're the gunners of the group, but Fortnite doesn't care. Anyone in that game is using a gun, regardless of whether or not they would use guns in their respective source material. But having a character crossover into Fortnite would be really massive. That game is still massively popular. Another crossover, one that I really want, and I hope does happen, is including a Final Fantasy VII character in Tekken 8. I personally really would love Tifa. I think she just fits in really well. Her moveset, I think, would complement the combat of Tekken really well. But also, I've thought about putting Aerith in Tekken before. Imagine Aerith. If she gets all of her ward abilities and you get them all set up, she would be unstoppable. You wouldn't be able to get close to her. She'd be long range, mid range. She could do footsies. You thought Akuma in Tekken 7 was bad? Wait till you see Aerith in Tekken 8. She's unstoppable. So speaking of Remake Part 3, what about Vincent and Sid? Will they be playable and will they navigate the world map with our party? Hamaguchi would go on to say, "It's hard for me to state clearly right now whether they'll be playable, but I think that's an element players are naturally expecting. So I think that in a way is its own answer." Hamaguchi being super cryptic here, but yeah, we know Sid and Vincent, they're gonna be playable. They should roam around the world map with us. We're all expecting it, which is kind of funny because I think Hamaguchi did actually say in past interviews that Sid and Vincent would be playable. Maybe he got in trouble. I know there was that event in Riyadh where Hamaguchi was just letting loose and saying all kinds of things about Remake Part 3, and maybe he had to get reeled back in a little bit. And he might have revealed a little too much, so he's got to be a little bit more cryptic these days. Now, what about that slap fight from the original FF7, the iconic moment where Tifa and Scarlett just slap the crap out of each other? Will that be in Remake Part 3? Hamaguchi says he heard a ton of players saying they want them to leave that slapping minigame in. To them, he says, "I think we're going to deliver something really top notch, so please be excited." And there's a number of ways they can approach this. Again, they could do it minigame style and have some sort of minigame designed around slapping and blocking. Maybe not like the 3D brawler. I really didn't care for the 3D brawler stuff. Maybe I'm just too slow to react to this stuff, or maybe I'm just stupid. I struggled so badly with 3D brawler. I had to pause the game when the enemy was going to attack so I could see what attack was headed towards my way. So I wouldn't want to see that, but I'm sure they could find some cute way to start the beginning of that battle where it is a mini game and it is an homage to the original. But after that, it's probably going to be amped up to like 1,000, and it's going to be an actual legit boss fight between Tifa and Scarlett. Tifa's an incredible fighter. We know Scarlett has a ton of mechs at her disposal, so I wouldn't be shocked if she has another mech that shows up out of nowhere to fight Tifa. And all of this would have to take place on the Junon cannon, so you would need a really massive area for the characters to maneuver, and you might have to add some stuff to allow for it to be like a bigger action set piece that we're used to getting from things like Remake and Rebirth. But honestly, if they just said, screw it, we're just gonna have Tifa and Scarlett slap each other and then that's the end, I wouldn't be mad at that either. I think it'd be kind of funny to kind of turn the situation on its head, and instead of doing a big boss battle, you're just slapping each other again.
This is for him! Hey, quit it!
Okay.
And the last one we will end on here is the collaboration between Square Enix and the Nissin Soup Company. Now, if you're unaware of what I'm talking about, there is the company Nissin. They make a lot of instant ramens and soup bowls. They're most known for cup noodles, which I absolutely love. I love instant ramen in general. I know it's not as good as the real thing, but it just holds a special place in my heart. So I love prepackaged ramen. Nissin in particular, I absolutely really love. So if they ever want to approach me one day with a sponsorship and maybe a lifetime supply of cup noodle, I would not say no. But in Japan, they have these commercials where Remake Sephiroth, who is wearing cat ears and a cat tail, is trying to seduce Cloud with the power of delicious soup. And it's all promotion for Nissin's Donbe brand of noodles. Now, obviously, when you do a brand deal like this or any type of crossover, you have to get permission from the people that created said characters in order to do this. So Hamaguchi had to approach Nomura about the whole thing. And this is coming to us from Audrey, where she goes on to write, Hamaguchi said he had to check in with Nomura if it was in character and okay to allow Nissin to use Sephiroth and Cloud in their Donbe Udon commercial. Nomura responded with, yeah, sure, why not? The remake team was the one who edited the cutscenes with the supervision of a director from Nissin. Both sides had a lot of fun working on this project. That response from Nomura just kind of makes me laugh. Because I feel like Nomura kind of is shrouded in mystery to a degree. He's this very mysterious figure within the gaming community, and he's responsible for some really crazy, goofy stuff from like Kingdom Hearts that is really confusing. Anytime we see him in a video interview or something regarding Final Fantasy, it's usually really well produced. So for him to be approached by Hamaguchi about a commercial with Sephiroth and Cloud for soup, and he's just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's kind of funny to me. And I think that's probably the type of person Nomura is. He probably is way more relaxed and laid back and chill than I think a lot of us realize, because most of what we have to go on is the work that he's done over the past, decades or so. So the commercials themselves are super wacky. They don't take themselves too seriously. I mean, Sephiroth's wearing cat ears and a tail, and he's trying to get Cloud to eat the udon. But this also kind of goes back to like collaborations and how to get Final Fantasy VII out to more people is doing silly stuff like this. I remember when Dissidia NT came out a few years ago here in America, they had another brand deal with Nissan where on different packages of Cup Noodle, they had Cloud. Some had Lightning. I believe some had the Warrior of Light. And I still have my Cloud Cup Noodle packaging that came with that cup. In particular, I think it even had a download code for DLC for Noctis. However, it was expired and I couldn't use it, so I was kind of mad about that. But who knows, maybe one day here in America for 7 Remake Part 3, we'll get our equivalent of this commercial, and Sephiroth will try to seduce Cloud with the power of the Double Whopper. And then to end the video, I just wanted to throw this in there because I came across it randomly on Twitter. This comes to us from Tifa Bro, where they played the PC version of Rebirth and they used the free cam, and they found that the environment that your characters are standing in for the main menu is an actual full 3D skybox. Everything's been fully modeled. There's even a surrounding environment for that skybox. So they put a lot of detail into just a main menu where you're literally only seeing one angle of it. And the one that they're showing here in particular, I believe, is for the Nibelheim section of the game at the beginning, where it's super cloudy and rainy. But that just goes to show you how much detail they put into the smallest thing that you wouldn't even think twice about. So with that being said, that is the video. Another long one, but there's so much news flying around to celebrate the release of Rebirth on PC, and Rebirth seems to be doing really, really well. I know at one point it reached #1 here in the States on the Steam charts. And I think when it came to worldwide sales, it was #4, but the 3 games above it were all free to play. So Rebirth is doing very well, and clearly a lot of people wanted to play this game on PC, and I really hope that sends that message to Square Enix of, yeah, you really need to get Part 3, and all of your future games for that matter, day and date on PC and console. It's a really big deal, and it just helps the longevity and the overall health of your game. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below on what we covered today. Specifically, what kind of brand crossover would you like to see Final Fantasy VII get involved with in the future to promote the franchise? I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.